And this workshop is meant to bring together people who are curious about different topics, whatever topics they want to research on, and we would bring our topics, like I said, and then we vote down to 3 topics at least if we have more time, and then we break into groups, and then we allocate sections to each other. So one person can take like the introduction, the body of the research, and then probably like the conclusion. And then finally we come forward and then present our findings to the larger group. So yeah, I would invite Aisha Aliyubima, curator and researcher, for the opening remarks as well.
Okay. Seriously, hi everyone. Well, because am I talking to the camera? Am I talking to people? Anyway, hi everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. Of all the bad ideas Dede has had, this one is currently like near the top, having me do this opening remark. But like, Àwùjọ Collective is very like awesome, and I think like we need more spaces of this sort in Abuja, just spaces for us to congregate, to have fun, to just think together. Spaces that are not so burdened by like expectations of production and any sort of expectations, just a place where people from different groups can congregate. I'm particularly very interested in places that break out of like the several silos in which we exist in Abuja, and I see them as places where we can subvert often what is expected for us and what we expect of ourselves. So we just have a space to breathe differently and to think differently, and I hope that we can really do that during this session and explore our various ways of thinking and the various topics that we're all working on. So thank you, and I hope we have a great time.
My name is OJ Ikwa. I'm playing as Sunday Okuchukwu in the Àwùjọ intensive workshop labs. My selected topic is the origins and the sustenance of narratives in political economy. Basically, like, how certain ideas get support in the political space, and that inform, the economic choices that our governments make.
Hi, my name is Aisha Adibima. I am playing as Taribo West at the Àwùjọ Peer Lab intensive workshop, and my topic is collaboration in urban spaces. I'm really trying to understand how artists and collectives move across the playground that is the urban space that they exist in.
Okay. Hi, my name is Afe, and I'm playing as Jay-Jay Okocha at the Àwùjọ Collective Peer Lab Intensive Workshop. And my topic will be the integration of forestry into urban development.
Alright. Yeah, let's change the red square. Let's sit down in the second panel. Alright. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Format is my name, then what else? My name, the player I'm playing on, and what's the topic? Okay. Just 3. Okay. That's my name now. Alright. Hello everyone, my name is Sheriff. I'm an artist and designer. I will be playing for Àwùjọ Collective as Rashidi Yekini. For the collective, I'll be speaking on, rather I would like to research, is that correct? I would like to research Nigeria's independence struggle, or their lack of, whether or not it exists compared to other countries in Africa. Was there a struggle, or was it a handover? That's it.
You sound fancy. Okay. Um, is it already recording? No. So my topic doesn't need to be like specific to anything. Are you sure?
Whatever topic you want to
Sorry.
research on or like need to collaborate to research on.
Okay.
But our start line is history.
Okay.
Yeah. Go.
Okay. Oh, what's the format again? Sorry.
Tell us your name. You can also include what you do, who you're playing as, and your topic.
Rashid Yakini? Rashid? Okay, thanks. Hi everybody, my name is Pelimo. I'm a poet. I'm playing as Rashidi Yekini for the Àwùjọ collective. And my topic is around the history of disability inclusion and the stereotypes and labels that are placed on persons with disabilities in Nigeria. And I read that a lot of persons with disabilities were called spirit children, which had like a negative connotation, but evolving over time, there's a positive connotation to spirit children with my friends. So I want to learn more about those stereotypes and debunk them, essentially.
Thank you. My name is Dede. I'm a writer and researcher. I'm the project manager for the Àwùjọ collective, and my research topic is energy crisis in Nigeria. I'm trying to see the historic epileptic power supply we've suffered as a nation in our country, and I think going through archiving, the digitized archives via the archiving website, I've seen that the power issues have caused a lot of issues and problems in the past. There was this news I saw one time. This guy, a chemist, basically, there was a power outage, and then he lighted a candle and went to sleep, and he woke up screaming because his shop was on fire. This is one of the many problems that the energy crisis in Nigeria has caused people. It has cost them their lives, it has caused them businesses, even our economic development has also been stifled as a result, because we can't separate energy from our development as a nation. And that. Okay, so we're about to give our participants and players a chance to speak more on their ideas. By the way, this whole thing was Afe's idea. She texted me on Instagram and was like, oh, I think we should make a space for people to come up with research topics and we collaborate together. And yeah, just a research playground basically. Yeah, so I'm just answer the question.
Where do you want to get into that?
I want to know how like artists operate in Abuja as part of a broader like study I'm doing of how the design in Abuja affects like our movement and our ability to collaborate, because every area of this city, every district to be closed off and siloed. So say a pandemic or like a disease or a crisis breaks out in one district in Abuja, it's designed in a way that it can be shut down and contained, right? So it makes movement very difficult for us, but it's not just movement of people, it's also movement of ideas. It's also moving into spaces that you do not belong to, in quote. So yeah, I just want to understand what that means for people working.
Yeah, so I'm just going to let Afi speak on ideas right now.
Okay. My topic is integration of forestry into urban development and whether it's something that's needed in Nigeria. To be honest, at first I forgot my topic, so I had to make this one up on the spot. But basically, I'm into agriculture and I'm really, really interested in also housing and buildings and how it helps people move around, especially in cities. And one thing I noticed about like the building structure in Nigeria, that as much as the houses can look nice and everything, it's not necessarily so human friendly or us friendly. We cut down our trees, we build houses, and everywhere is hot. Then we need ACs, and then it becomes congested. And then back to Dede's topic on energy crisis, it's our houses are also not built for the electrical structures that we have here. So I want to know whether or not we need a more natural approach, an approach that is built more around nature and less around, let's say, artificial and luxury like buildings. So that's what I want to look into, and I want to know whether it's something that we really need in this country. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, my topic is no, 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 no. The topic is Nigeria's independence struggle. Does it exist? I think when I think about 1960s and how we gained independence, I used to think about our presidents back then, and how everyone was celebrating the victory. But now I'm older, I realize that there are a lot of people that are playing Nigeria but are not Nigerians. There's a lot of the power doesn't lie in the country or the citizens, it lies abroad. And then that made me wonder, these people that are running the country are the same people that were running the country back then. And then I started thinking about how in Africa there's always been countries that that struggled for their independence. They fought for it. Whether they went to war like Ghana or Algeria or South Africa, and when they basically apartheid and all that stuff. But then I think about Nigeria, and I don't recall anything going around about how people were going to jail, or people were getting in prison, or people were dying, and they were fighting for it. Is it for independence? For independence? I don't, I don't remember too much about that, to be honest. And I feel like
But yeah, continue.
I'll continue anyway. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so that's what
That
the
is
more
okay. Yeah, okay, more interested in it. I think that is my main question generally. I think what was the struggle like? Because I have so many questions about that whole period. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, about when you talk about political economic narratives, it's more about like there are certain ideas. I mean, what gave me the inspiration was this article I read about someone that was talking about like like Buharinomics, and he was talking about certain ideas about how the economy should be run, ideas of self-sufficiency, import substitution, should we close up the country as a means to develop it? Should we try to grow everything in-house, or should we try to participate in the larger, like, the economy, world economy? So all those ideas, so how more or less have been thinking, like, how they come about and how they persist and how they shape, like, the narratives, because most times, many governments come in, and even amongst the public, like, for you to get popular support for certain choices, things like structural adjustment, like you have to be able to mobilize a certain narrative, a certain consciousness in people to be able to back, you know, those political decisions. So I think that's what informed my topic, like, the sources of all these narratives, where they come about, and what keeps them, what makes them to persist, and ultimately, like, how they shape, the trajectory of our development outcomes.
Thank you. So I was thinking about disability inclusion and how it interacts with capitalistic society, because in capitalism, the value of a human life is based off of what they can produce, how productive they are in society. But then a lot of persons with disabilities or people with chronic illnesses that are severe cannot necessarily produce enough for a capitalist society. So it leads to ask the question of what's the worth of a human life? And that's a question I've been asking. There's a debate that's been going on online. There was an ad with Sydney Sweeney where she said, "Oh, we have good genes. It's just the whole thing, Sha, that happened online. Yeah, so a lot of people there's been a lot of backlash, and while that ad has been termed racist, it's also very ableist in the sense that um, eugenics, right? So eugenics basically says that there are favorable characteristics, and so persons, if you are thought to have a child that has a disability, then you should abort them because they are going to cause you a lot of stress. So it's like, what's the value of a human life, and how were things like this handled in the past? Because children with disabilities were killed, children with disabilities were isolated, and they are still segregated even now. So I want to know how we started in Nigeria and how we can. Okay, yeah, so how bodies with disabilities interact with capitalist systems, their place in those systems, and how we eventually got our freedoms, because I don't think people talk much about disability history and how we went from killing children with disabilities or labeling them as spirit children to getting to a point where, I mean, now we're still regressed in terms of knowledge on disability inclusion, but to a very good extent, at least within the area of human rights, we know that persons with disabilities have human rights and there's a lot of awareness. So just curious on that transition and the stereotypes surrounding that topic. Yeah.
All right, so my topic is the history of energy crisis in Nigeria, and I was talking about a couple of newspaper articles I found or read, including the one where this guy was in his shop and then NEPA took light and he had to put on a candle, and then he woke up and his entire shop was on fire. And the title of the article was called A Cry for Help, because at this point he was rushed to the hospital and he had severe burns and he had to do like plastic surgery, and then also had to, what do they call this, fundraise. Yeah, he had to fundraise. So that was, I mean, that's the title of the newspaper article, A Cry for Help. Literally, he, I was say crew. He cried out of his sleep, and then still a cry for help because people needed to fundraise for his surgery. But I'm also interested in seeing how our historic epileptic power supply has affected us as a country. How has this stifled our growth? How has this stifled the economy? How has this stifled livelihoods or even caused health crisis? Because one time I was researching on the socio-economic systems in Nigeria in relation to energy transition, and even some of the things that I was looking at was health as well, and to see that some primary health centers don't have access to electricity. Procedures have to be done with rechargeable lamps, candle lights, and sometimes even vital things that need refrigeration can't be, preserved at the hospital. And then this affects how people also, in our life, is it expectancy or life what? Yeah, how long we live as Nigerians, and then there's also businesses, how businesses suffer. So when we think of moving from fossil fuel to like energy, how do we then say that we can even achieve that if now as a country we haven't been able to, generate as much as even 10, is it megawatts? Now we are just on like 6, that's no, not 6, probably like 5. The highest we have gotten to sometimes is like 6 megawatts per hour as a country, and there are countries that we claim that we're bigger than who generate more power, more electricity per hour than us, and this is a problem to me. But then, like I said, I'm trying to see the historic periods where this has happened. How long have we even been suffering this thing? And I've seen articles as far back as the 1940s, and yeah, so it's just my topic. Yeah. Okay. So we are moving to voting. So we will vote. Do you remember everyone's topic? Yeah. So yeah, we are voting for 2 topics out of the 6 proposed topics. So if you are voting for Aisha's topic, say aye. You can go for your own. Okay, we have three eyes. Why topic? 4 eyes. Okay, cool. Okay, for our first topic. Wow. Betrayal. Okay, you're voting for Sheriff's topic. Okay. Yes, we can go twice and then we'll do a tie. So Aisha has how many votes? 4 or 5? 4. Afe has how many? It was just you.
Actually, I'm putting this one out there.
We can. Yeah.
Yeah, and how accessible material.
But true. True. Okay, so Afe has 1. Sheriff has. Okay, 2. Sheriff. I feel like I saw more hands up. That's 3. You're not even voting for yourself. Wow. Time up. I'll just still put 3. Who is voting for OJ? 2. Oh, guy. I'm putting 2 there. Who is voting for Philemon's topic? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. Okay, Dede. Okay, Pearl. So we have 6 for Pearl. And who is voting for my topic? Yeah, you can go. I'm voting for everybody's topic then. Don't be biased though, just follow your mind. To make it easier. Okay, that's actually true. Okay, that's how many? 5? What, did you raise your hand? Okay, 6. Oh, I am Pearl. We have a tie. So I guess that's the topic for today. The 2 topics. Okay, so we are researching on 2 topics.
I feel like we're doing your topic. Energy crisis in Nigeria from inception. We have never solved it. So, like, your topic is actually more like
yes, we can just even start. Okay, but I want to set the methodology because we will use Archivi.ng's websites. So I would, when we break into 2, we check their website and see what they have on those topics. Then we can also check other places and see what they have on those topics. But you can also nominate how you want it to go. Like if there's a history, there's a body, and then any other information you want to add as simple as that. And then we come back and present to the group. So we have 2 topics. The first one is disabilities history, stereotypes, and freedoms. Then we have the history of energy crisis in Nigeria. So, I mean, that topic is quite big, but probably we'll come back and have like a refined. So, yeah. So, how are we breaking? Who is in my group and who is in Pearl's group? This is what we should. Okay, so this is what we'll do. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you're in 2.
Also, number like 1.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you are 1, go to one side. I'm actually 1. Okay, so if we are 1, how should we do this? I think a group should be here. And it, yes. Okay, you want to choose? Okay, group 1 or group 2? Okay, then choose. Okay, choose. Yeah. So now we're throwing it open for you to join.
Your topics are sort of related. Yes,
yeah. Okay, so we are choosing our groups according to the group suggestion. Yeah, so Afe is in Pearl's group, And then who else is going to complete? Okay, Aisha is in my group. You win energy as well. You're left with Pearl. Yeah, okay, so I think group 1 can stay here and group 2 should be there. So Pearl, you're here. We'll go to the table. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah, the time is 30 minutes. Yeah. By 3:30. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Afe and I'm playing as Jay-Jay Okocha, and the topic that we'll be researching on is disabilities, histories, stereotypes and freedom. My role in this topic was to search on the economic patterns in relation to disabilities in Nigeria, and also the reforms and the future prospects that will be put in place. So far, what I found is that during the 70s and during the 80s and the 90s, even before that, there was a lot of neglect placed towards disabled persons, and they were basically excluded from being part of economic development in Nigeria. However, they had to basically fight for themselves and advocate for themselves. So that's all. Thank you.
Can I start? Hello everyone, my name is Sheriff. I'm playing as what am I playing as? I'm playing as Rashidi Yekini for Àwùjọ Collective, and we are working on a topic which is disability in Nigeria, stereotypes, freedoms. And specifically, I was researching the period of post-colonialism up until the early 2000s, and we are talking about um, stuff that's around government policies, exclusion from labor, the oil economy, the rise in advocacy movements, and NGO and international influence. So my work is going to be centered around those key points and how the narrative around disability is relating to those points. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pelemo, and I was part of the group that worked on the disability history, stereotypes, and freedoms. I worked on contemporary capitalism and the legal frameworks, and we can see that in terms of the language, people with disabilities were able to change from being called disabled people or wheelchair bound people. Sorry, not disabled people. Well, the disabled and wheelchair bound people to being called persons with disabilities. And there were several laws that protected our rights, but not holistically. The United Nations resolution protected our rights, and then we went to the 1979 Constitution, which did not entirely protect our rights, to the 2018 Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act. And it was just a whole journey to see how we went from being discriminated against and not having any protection of our rights to ratifying the UNCRPD and the implementation of the act. Sorry, that distracted me. I have a lot to say. Okay. I should continue. Okay. So, in spite of the 2018 Discrimination Act being passed, there's been a lot of gaps in implementation, and currently we can see a lot of activists working towards closing that gap. There was a period of time that was given for the Disability Act to be passed, and most of it has not still been passed in different states, and we're still working towards making sure that people make sure that the implementation is taken seriously. And it's an ongoing struggle. Disability inclusion is an ongoing struggle, and we're still fighting for our freedoms. And so, from the colonialism era till now, a lot has changed, but still not enough has changed. And so, we can see that the struggle is persistent, and the struggle is something that we're still pushing. Sorry. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Power failure in Nigeria has been chronicled through major newspaper stories, each chronicling the evolving crisis. And then we looked at the topic history of energy crisis in Nigeria, and then we were group one, and then I was tasked with the duty of looking at the the history in Nigerian newspapers, chronicled by Nigerian newspaper. And then we used one of our research tools was the archiving website, and then this was our starting point. And then we gathered some research and data by looking at several newspapers. Some very interesting headlines was Canepa Restore Power, and this was following the Kanji Dam commissioning, right? And Nigerians were promised cheap, reliable, and adequate power supply, but all of this fell short. And this was in 1978, right? By 1989, nothing changed. We see that Kanji Dam faced a deterioration. Why? We couldn't import, parts to maintain this equipment, and even the infrastructure in itself was ill-maintained. We also saw an under investment in this key resource towards Nigeria's power generation as well. We also see that the dam was also accruing debts, right? And all of these are things that we still see today, where we see that there's the lack of maintenance, there's the debts, and then there's the underinvestment in the power sector. Another really funny article that we saw via the archiving website was titled "A Light in NEPA's Tunnel." This was funny and sarcastic because NEPA here was directly compared with a tunnel. And then when do we ever come out of this tunnel? When do we ever see the light if NEPA is the tunnel, right? And then moving forward, we looked at the early history. How did power come to Nigeria? And Nike covered this.
Hello, my name is Omonike Odutola. I'm playing as Efesoki. So the topic I proposed was neurodivergence in Nigeria, but I'm going to be speaking on the emergence of, the history of electricity in Nigeria. My section, I'm speaking on the history and how the crisis started. So electricity came into Nigeria in 1896, 15 years after it got to England, but it came specifically to Lagos. Then there were different energy companies set up in different areas, like Jos, specifically Lagos. But it was divided, and there was no national electricity in general until okay. So in 1950, Electricity Corporation of Nigeria was set up, and in 1962, Niger Dams Authority was set up. So those two companies merged to form what we know as NEPA, NEPA. But there was still energy problems in Nigeria because we could not provide enough electricity, because between 1970s and 2000, a lot of people came. Nigeria became populated basically, and we were not able to provide electricity to the whole country. So people started looting. And sometimes we had to get blackouts because there was low water at the Kanji Dam. So we're not able to really generate electricity. Then, I don't know what to say. Okay, so there were grid breakdowns. A lot of grids broke down. People were looting Kanji Dam, the gas. People were breaking into steal. I think they reported up to 3,000 to 4,000 loots that people took gases from. at a certain point, and I think like since then we just really had problems. Oh, okay. We also a lot of private companies also bought into the lights. I don't know what to say. Yeah, and people, we thought that was going to make it sustainable. We thought that they were going to be able to sustain like electricity in Nigeria, but we couldn't still sustain it, and people like we're not able to maintain any of the things that we had. We didn't maintain Anji Dam. We couldn't provide electricity to like whole Nigeria. And since then, like, I don't think anybody has really made any effort to.
Early 2000s, what we knew or know as NEPA was rebranded to be known as the Power Holding Company of Nigeria, that's PHCN, right? By 2005, we had the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, which is the EPSRA, right? And then EPSRA actually set in motion the unbundling of the power sector. By 2000 to 2013, we had what would now become the unbundling of the power sector. We had 6 GENCOs, 11 DISCOs, and the Transmission Company of Nigeria, right? And generation and distribution was privatized, but the Nigerian government retained the rights to transmitting electricity, which was why we have the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Despite the reforms, challenges remain. We have weak transmission, we have liquidity crisis, and then we have distribution bottlenecks and poor collection efficiency.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is OJ. I was with the group, that's group 1, and we researched the history of energy crisis in Nigeria. You know, after looking at its emergence and looking at the efforts and the history and the reform movement, my own role and my own contribution was to look at the current efforts that are being done tackling the issue. And I looked at it from 2 angles, I think public and private. I think public being like, you know, the efforts from the public sector as governments, and then private is you know, the efforts of common Nigerians as they deal with the issue. From the public aspect, I think legislative reforms have been done, and I think there's been a new law, the Electricity Act 2023, which has empowered subnational governments, you know, to be able to legislate and to pursue their own solutions, and has also empowered, you know, wider companies and increased participation. And then, most importantly, I think for private citizens, there's been the increased adoption of solar solutions, inverters, and solar panels.
That pretty much sums up the history of the electricity crisis in Nigeria, and we can see that mismanagement, underinvestment, sabotage, and policy misalignment and inconsistencies have pretty much caused our problems in Nigeria. But what are the ways forward? Could it be to diversify into renewables? Could it be more funding in the power sector, or a policy alignment? Thank you.